Hey everyone, it's Jack, and I'm here today at the bench with a new friend of mine, Matt Bocchi. Matt is the author of the book Sway. It was the first memoir written by a child of 9/11, and I'm so grateful that he's here with me today to share his story and talk a little bit about grief.
It's good to be here. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
It's an honor, honestly.
No, please. It's an honor to have you.
Thank you.
I just read your book yesterday, and I was blown away by your story. I was blown away by your writing.
Thank you.
You told it beautifully, and it provided me hope. You know,
Yeah.
I'm in a place where I really needed it.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate it, and I'm so impressed by what you're doing.
Thank you.
I think it's really incredible.
It means a lot. I'm equally as impressed, and it's been an honor getting to know you and learning more about your story, learning about Jack, and I don't know. I feel like we were connected through layers of people, and it's just a pleasure and honor to meet you. And
Well, thank you
talk
for
about
saying
this.
that. I appreciate
Of
it.
course.
To kick things off, tell me about who you're grieving.
Yeah. I'm grieving my father, John Bocchi. He died. He worked at Cantor Fitzgerald in the North Tower. He passed away at 9/11. And as we were discussing before, it's been 24 years, and I feel that grief is just a funny thing. I once heard that it moves in like concentric circles, and I started thinking about that metaphor, and it perfectly applies to my life because I found as I've gotten further away from it, one little moment, one little droplet of water, will trickle me back to the center, to the core, and I'll feel
Right.
it fresh again, and it feels like it happened yesterday, And there are other times where I feel like it's been 24 years,
Yeah.
and I look back and I reflect, and also, as we were talking about before, like I feel like now I remember my father and I celebrate the life he lived versus how I sort of used to approach his death and just focus on his death and how he may have died or what had happened to him. And that change, that transformation has been a huge blessing for me, because it's allowed me to truthfully move forward in my life.
So you were 9 years old when your father passed?
Yeah, I was 9 years old. I was in fourth grade. I vividly remember how beautiful of a day it was, and it was actually, the skies were so clear that it was referred to by the pilots in air traffic control as severe clear. There was no clouds, and it had this like feeling in the air. Growing up in New Jersey, like that transformation, that change from summer to fall. Still some humidity, but like you could sense fall was close, and it was just so beautiful. And about 9 o'clock in the morning, I was pulled out of my classroom, and when I walked into the hallway, I saw my brother Nick, who was 7. He was in second grade, and Nick was standing there with his teacher, and my teacher follows, and they kind of whisper to each other, and my classmate and Nick's classmate, also brothers, their father worked in the World Trade Center as well, but he was on a lower floor and had no problem getting out. And so they talked to us 4 boys and told us that they thought a small plane hit our dad's building. They were safe, they were evacuating, nothing to worry about. And I sort of just like intuitively believed them. And again, like they had no idea where my dad worked. They had no idea where my classmates' dad worked. So unfortunately for me and my brothers, my dad wasn't safe. And I would find out later on that he, around that same time, had basically made his last phone calls to my mom and to his brother, my uncle, and said goodbye. And my mom purposely kept me in school. And that's where, like, when I got home that afternoon, for years I wondered why she did it. Right. And as I've been able to sort of like look back and understand that she didn't want me to see what was going on at the house, and be a part of that. Because when I got home, like everything changed. I was no longer an innocent 9-year-old fourth grade kid. My life was changed completely. I saw the footage, and I remember how viscerally it affected me seeing some of the more graphic images that were shown on TV that day. Never again after that day. But it fundamentally changed me as a child and as a person. It became a part of who I was. It became my image. It was referred to as a child of 9/11. It became a massive part of my identity. And for years I hated that, and then I shifted that mentality and I wore it as a badge of honor, And honestly, as the years went by and I started writing the book, being labeled initially as that first child writing a book, like that was something I wore with honor, and a badge I wore with honor. But as we talked about, like I believe everyone has a story to tell, and I encourage them to do it.
Right.
And that's my hope in sharing my honesty, that they'll be inclined to do the same.
Absolutely. Well, you should wear that with a badge of honor because it's incredible what you've done to honor your father, and for so many people that are grieving, especially other people who lost, parents at a young age.
Yeah.
And, if there was something you could say to your younger self, to that 9-year-old boy, what would it be?
Yeah, I've been asked that question a lot recently. And candidly, what I say is I wish that I could hug him and say, it's going to be hard.
Oh.
It's going to be tough. It's going to be challenging, but you will be okay. I felt for so many years, and especially in the early days, like everyone was like, oh, I understand what you're going through, like, I'm sorry. I wish people honestly would have been as real as they possibly could have been with me. And and it's hard to do for a kid, right? And this is maybe just my viewing of it as an adult, but I just wish like someone would have been like, yeah, this is going to suck.
Right.
Honestly, it's going to suck. But you will be okay, and you will be stronger because you're going to get through it. I just wish I had that approach in a sense. And maybe it sounds off saying that, but
no, it's the truth.
You know what I mean? Like, because it's just it's real.
Absolutely.
And I think that a lot of people wanted to sugarcoat it for me and my brothers. And I don't know. I think that approaching it from a more transparent, honest approach would have maybe benefited me to some degree, possibly.
At what age do you feel like you really were able to start processing your grief or healing from it? Or do you feel like you have?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I feel like there's been like ebbs and flows. I've changed a lot.
Yeah.
I feel like in the beginning, we were in therapy super young. Different therapists approach grief and death in different ways.
Right.
And I feel like for me, at least, I had one therapist who I connected with, who I was seeing from like about 12 on, and her approach benefited me tremendously because she would get really honest and real with me. But again, like, I don't know, I think that it's evolved, right? I've worked as I've gotten older on different parts of my grief and trauma, and the therapy that I do now is more trauma based and trauma focused. But I don't know, like I said, I feel like sometimes it's so close to me, and other times it's not. And there are moments where I feel like I need more work and more therapy, and I have to do a little bit more work on myself. And there are other times where I feel like I'm okay.
Right. Totally. What do you think the biggest misconception is about grief to people who haven't experienced a loss like this?
I would say, my dad's death was very publicized and sensationalized.
Right.
But even for people's deaths who are not, I think that people automatically assume that time goes by and you move on and you forget. And like, you do move on, but you don't forget. And you feel them. You feel their presence with you all the time. I think some people who haven't gone through loss don't get that piece of it, you know? Because for me, in my experience, like, there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about it. Some days are harder than others, but there's not a day that goes by I don't think about it.
Right.
And I know it's the same for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think that's a misconception for sure.
Definitely. And the fact that it was 9/11, you know, that carries so much weight and just adds such a complexity to your grief. How growing up, like in school, when 9/11 would come up, I mean, like, did you ever learn about 9/11 in a history class, or was that even in the textbooks yet by the time you graduated?
No, not in middle school, certainly not in high school. I mean, we talked about it in high school more. One of my friends actually from middle school, who's still a friend to this day, he sent me a journal entry that he had done. The date was September 13, 2001, who was in my class. And he just asked a question from like a fourth grader's perspective, basically like, I hope Matt's dad's okay. I hope Matt's okay, that he's coming back to school soon. And we were out of school for about 3 weeks. And I don't really remember being taught about it in middle school. I know it wasn't in the textbooks then, but like in high school, we would talk about the religious side of it. Kids asked a lot of questions about things. Questions I had too. But every anniversary I felt spotlighted. There were certain years that I didn't go to school, certain years that I did. Sort of like a fun fact, like not many people know, like when I was a freshman in high school, I was on the Oprah Winfrey Show.
Oh, wow.
And it was, the episode was called The Children of 9/11. So it was the 5th year anniversary.
Wow.
I want to say 5th year anniversary. 5 or 6 years. I can't remember. Maybe I was a sophomore.
Yeah.
And so anyway, the spotlight feeling that I already felt was intensified with that, you know? And then, I don't know, I feel like when I got to college, like maybe it was a little lesson, but Villanova's not a huge school. There are a lot of people who go there, but like you find out about people really quickly.
Right.
So the word spread. So I just feel like I always carried it with me.
Totally.
Truthfully.
Have you met many other children who lost their parents on 9/11?
Yeah. I mean, I have two of my closest friends.
Yeah.
One of my best friends lost his dad. Went to different schools and stuff. But
Yeah.
we, as I got older, I mean, I met like, there was a few friends of mine from college that I found out lost parents, 9/11. And everyone has a different approach to it, right? Comes up naturally for some, others not so much. But yeah, the feeling that you're not alone,
Right.
that we understand what you're going through, what you're feeling, it's very important to feel. It's a community that's very close.
Good.
And not different than other communities that are grieving, but again, all of our deaths were very publicized.
Right.
So you feel that. And like I said, for others, they kind of shut off and they don't want to be exposed to it, and they want to kind of just like decompress and remove themselves from the situation. For others, like myself, like I've talked about it openly because I think that it allows people to realize like we are human. You know, it's just because like there's like this tragic historical event associated with our loved one's death doesn't mean that like we're dealing with it any differently than someone who loses someone to natural causes or something, you know?
Right.
So yeah, I met a lot of people on the way though.
That's great.
And again, like it's just a bond that you share.
Absolutely. If there's one thing you could change about how it was handled after your dad died.
I feel like every experience that I went through, everything I battled with as a result of it, I wouldn't have changed. I wish that the approach I started taking about 5 years ago was what I had approached. Is how I would have approached his death sooner, celebrating his life.
Absolutely.
You know, that's how he would want to have been remembered. That's what I was told by my mom, by my dad's brother, my uncle, and others close to him. Like that's how he'd want to be remembered.
Right.
Not by how he died.
Right.
But as a grieving child, you can't really. Grieving child doesn't want to listen to that.
Absolutely.
You know, it's like I felt the tremendous loss of my father, and I wanted to figure out what happened to him, and I wanted to piece the puzzle together where I could figure out his story, and then maybe have peace and closure, which I can now look back on now and know it wouldn't have happened for me if I had figured out his story.
Right.
But I think that had I gone about it a different way, I would have approached it by celebrating his life more than anything.
It's beautiful.
You know.
Absolutely. So in your book, you speak very candidly about a lot of things.
Yeah.
But one thing that I related to was abusing alcohol and drugs. And I think so many people that are grieving just want to numb the pain.
Yeah.
And I'd love to hear a little bit about your journey to sobriety and how that's helped with your grief.
Yeah. You know, it's no surprise to anyone who knew me and knows my story that I battled with substance abuse addiction for years, alcohol as well. And you know, I use it as a way to cope. The bottom line is I use it as a way to cope. When I got sober, I realized truthfully that the problem was myself for many years. Drugs and alcohol provided me a temporary solution to the problem. There are tons of people who deal with grief. There are tons of people who deal with loss and they don't abuse drugs or alcohol as a way to cope, you know?
Right.
Getting sober opened my eyes to the fact that the feelings and everything I had suppressed for so many years, I needed to handle them and face them as an adult. That's an eye-opening for me. Because truthfully, I would not have stayed sober had I not approached and addressed the things that I had suppressed and buried for so many years.
Absolutely.
That's been a key part of why I stayed sober.
That's amazing.
And so I think that it's easy in a sense. And I don't judge those who are going through loss or going through their own grieving process that are using alcohol or drugs as a crutch. I don't judge them because I went through it too, and I understand. But I will say that there are healthier ways to cope, and the fact that using those substances as a way to cope is only really just preventing that eventual addressing that needs to happen.
One thing I loved reading about in your book are the signs that your dad has sent to you, in particular the fly. And I love that you shared that. It's something that I related to. I feel like I see signs all the time. And I'd love if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about that and how if it's brought you comfort or your feelings about it.
So my mom was told to look for the signs. And 2 weeks prior to my dad's death, my dad had this, what I believe is a spiritual premonition. I felt like looking back and hearing the story that he just sensed and felt his death was coming.
Wow.
So he started talking all this crazy stuff to my mom, saying, you know, he wanted to be cremated when he would die, and he's 38 years old. So like a lot of the stuff my mom was hearing was just crazy to her. And then he said to her when he would die, he'd come back as a fly. And like again, like my mom like wasn't really like processing what he was saying. She just kind of felt like it was a bizarre, like why was he saying this stuff?
Right.
So September 12th, my mom was told to look for the signs, and that night a fly lands on her nightstand. And she had a couple more moments in the days after, but that was like her first like sign that he wasn't coming home. Oh. Maybe it didn't settle in, but it was the first time, right? And this fly stayed in our house for 6 months at minimum, and probably longer, but I know family had said 6 months after 9/11. See it, open the window, open the door, try to let it out, it wouldn't go. And I can't even count how many visits I've had myself. And you know, I had visits in active addiction, moments I couldn't really explain. And ultimately I had a moment that was July 22nd, 2015, which led me to get sober 2 days later. And that was that sign from my father. And I was like, this is crazy. I had asked him for a sign. I said I needed help, and I had that visit from the fly, and that changed my life. When I got sober, I'd have visits all the time. I mean, I came forward about some traumatic childhood stuff, 6-7 months into sobriety, constant visits from my dad. Now, over 10 years later, I mean, and throughout those years too, always a visit. Book was coming out. I had fly visits all the time in the weeks and days leading up to the book. When the book came out, just tremendous sense of peace that would come from it. And you know, as I said to you, you feel them with you.
Right.
And I had a visit about a month ago in particular where I laughed and I smiled and I felt it. I felt his presence. And to say it gives me peace is an understatement. I have often wondered as I've gotten older, I got married, my wife is pregnant, and it's just all these beautiful gifts. I wonder what it would be like having him here. You know, I wish he was here, but then those visits just show me that he is there. You know, that he is here in spirit. And of course, I'd rather he be here in person, but knowing and feeling that presence is a beautiful, beautiful thing. And
that's an amazing outlook and beautiful, and I agree. What is some advice that you'd give to someone who's newly grieving?
Yeah, open your eyes to those signs and open your heart to it, more importantly. I think that for a lot of people, especially those who aren't really as spiritual, it's one of those experiences that you think are magic or, you know, made up or something, I don't know. But for me, it's really about opening your heart and your mind and your soul to it, and it comes. There's just a tremendous amount of gratitude, a tremendous amount of serenity that I feel comes from kind of connecting with our loved ones as they've passed and as they've moved on. And so for those who are newly struggling, newly grieving, my advice is to open up to it. Trust me when I tell you, you'll feel full immediately.
Any final thoughts on grief or grieving that you'd like to share?
As I said, I mean, I wish I had the magic recipe, you know, the cookbook to it. And I am not your perfect story of dealing with grief. But what I will say is, and I guess like that's my final words with it. I allow myself to feel the bad days, to feel the good days. I don't pity myself about it, but I allow myself to feel it. There are days where I don't want to talk about it. There are days where I don't want to feel it, but those days are better than numbing my pain and numbing my sorrows. And I just think that, I don't know, like for those who are newly struggling, especially newly grieving, like go easy on yourself. You're allowed to have those days where you veg out in sweatpants and,
Right.
and just want to watch movies all day, right? You're allowed to have those days where you just don't want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But those days get you through it too, you know? And not every day has to be perfect and sunny and rainbows, right?
Quickly before we go, I'm going to plug your book.
Oh, thank
Because I literally read your book in one sitting. Your writing is beautiful and
Thank
your
you.
story is incredible. And I think so many people would benefit from reading this. Even, of course, people that are grieving, but
Yeah.
anyone who's facing a difficult period in their life
Yeah.
and is feeling hopeless.
Yeah.
I've been having a very difficult time recently, as we've talked about,
Yeah.
and your book gave me hope today.
Thank you.
And I just really appreciate everything you're doing. I think it's incredible, and what a way to honor your father and carry on his legacy. And I'm just blown away by you.
Thank you.
And I'm very appreciative of your time.
I appreciate you
And
too.
thank you for being here.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I
totally.
gotta sign that.
I
too.
brought a Sharpie.
Perfect. You know the drill. You know the drill.